All right guys, today we're going to be installing this Prinsu Pro Camper Series rack on this Tundra. For all of you that are running campers in your truck bed, make sure and follow the PDF guide for the most up-to-date information on how to install this. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first step is to open up the box and lay out all your components. Make sure that you're not missing anything. So what you should see is 5 black crossbars, 1 silver one for the wind deflector, your outer side rails, inner side rails, wind deflector, mounting feet, and then all of your mounting and assembly hardware. So we're going to start by partially assembling the rack with our outer side rails, inner side rails, and a few crossbars. We're also going to go ahead and put our mounting feet on the rack. This will help us for a next step when we need to line up and drill some holes in the roof. For hardware, for the crossbars and mounting feet, we're using these 1-inch long 1/4-inch screws with the hex drive and a washer. You'll use a 5/32 hex bit to drive them in. All right, so next we're gonna remove this piece of roof trim. It's just held down with a few clips, and we'll measure back from the top edge of the windshield 9 1/4 inch to mark where our first holes are gonna be drilled. We'll do that both on passenger and driver side. So we've made a punch mark for where we're gonna drill just so our bit stays centered. We'll start drilling with a small bit and work our way up to 3/8 for these front 2 holes, and then we'll move to our next step. Some tips when drilling this is to not drill too fast so you don't harden the metal. And you also want to make sure when you punch through, you're not going too deep. There are some components and you know, some things you might want to avoid under there. So just make sure it doesn't punch down too deep, and keep your drill on a slow to medium speed, and just patiently work your way through. So we've got our 3/8 holes drilled in the front of the roof. The next step is going to be to install our plus nuts. So our install kit consists of a bolt with a hex coupler and 2 washers. You're going to want to sandwich the hex coupler with the washers and then thread the plus nut on to the bolt tightly. Then what we're going to do is put a thin bead of silicone around the inside lip of the plus nut. We'll pop it into our hole, and then using a 1/2-inch wrench and a 7/16 socket, we'll tighten that down and expand the plus nut so it clamps itself under the roof. So as you can see, we've lifted our partially assembled rack onto the roof. We used some spacers and a couple of our 1/4-inch mounting bolts to just mount in the front holes. We've centered our rack up, and now with a scribe tool, we're gonna scribe a line at the center of the additional slots so we know where to drill once we pull the rack back off. Okay, the next step is to put our roof trim back in. So now we've got all of our plus nuts inserted and secured in the roof. So to measure for this, you clip the front end in and then just go in front and behind your plus nut and cut out that section. You know, you can give 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch of room in front and behind there. And we're just gonna cut out around where that the mounting foot will bolt down. And we'll do that for the front and back foot and push those other sections back into the roof. Okay, now we're gonna mount our wind deflector onto the silver aluminum extrusion. So what we'll do is we'll drop these stainless steel T-nuts in the tracks, line them up pretty close to where the holes are on the wind deflector. Then we'll set our wind deflector on and fasten it down with these 1/2 inch long screws and a washer. Then after that, we're gonna put on our noise reducing trim, cut it to length, and we should be good to fully assemble the rack with the wind deflector. Okay, now that we fully assemble our rack, we're gonna use a drop of Vibratite on each of the crossbar fasteners. So we got our rack mostly assembled. We left out one crossbar that was over some of our mounting bolts, so we'll put that one in at the very end. The next step is to put down these rubber washers, and then we're gonna take a spacer, fill it with silicone, and then we'll be ready to mount the rack. Okay, so now we're threading in our 2-inch long, 1/4 inch mounting bolts. We'll just get these started by hand, and then we'll use a 7/16 socket to tighten them down. Before tightening them down fully, we're gonna wanna make sure we're centered from passenger to driver side. So I have some help here. We're just gonna make sure that the bolts land in the same spot, mirrored to each other in the slots. Here we go. We've got it all installed. If you have any further questions, make sure to drop a comment below or reach out to our customer service team, and we'll see you on the trails.